Oh my God. Okay, great. Really smell it. Oh, okay. Jesus. There's probably cleaning product somewhere. Right. There's one called. Thanks for joining us tonight. It's a joint committee meeting with housing and land use. Tonight we're going to be discussing St. Rocco's proposed rezoning. And Jeremy gonna take attendance.
Yep. I don't think any board member is joining us online right now. So when I call your name, just acknowledge it. We'll start with the Housing Committee. Antoinette Martinez. Thank you. Damian Andrade. Julia Bailey. Gladys Bruno. Richard Kodor. Jeremy Kaplan. Erin Keith. Maria Roca. John Santori. Pay Walker. Do not have a quorum. We'll move on to land use. Diana Gonzalez. Thank you. Erin Keith. Joan Body. Gabino Morales Escamilla. Julia Melzer Harris. Nicholas Jackson. Thank you. Jeremy Kaplan. Paul Mack. Antoinette Martinez. Thank you. Karen Rolnick. Thank you. Damaris Santiago. John Santori. Maria Roca. Chairperson Julio Pena, who doesn't count for quorum, is here for both committees. No quorum. Julia, I will note your attendance for the Land Use Committee. You do not count towards quorum.
Thank you.
All right, awesome. Really appreciate everyone making the time to be here. As you can see, this meeting is not very well attended, but really did want to take the opportunity to make sure that, things that are going on in the neighborhood, that we're doing our best to make sure that folks are informed. So if you can take this information back, there is going to be another meeting happening early next month on Wednesday, June 4th. So this is sort of like a preliminary meeting. We're going to be going through the proposal. Me, myself, I am not a land use expert. What I did was I went on the city's zoning website. I reviewed what has been submitted so far. I've read a couple of newspaper articles, and I'm just trying to put things together myself. What I wanted really for this meeting, and really appreciate doing it in conjunction with land use, is that a lot of times we find out about rezoning applications right when we have to vote on it. So right now, the community board is put on a clock. Right now, that metaphorical clock has not yet started, so we have a little bit of time to digest the information. And then we've invited the developer to come next month. So really just wanted this meeting for us to sort of go through the proposal together and formulate questions. That way, when the developer comes, it's not the first time that the board is hearing about this. And, it'll just give us a little bit of headway to ask questions. So, Jeremy, if you could share the presentation. All right, awesome. You want to give me control or?
Oh, you would have to share the presentation if you want. Oh, but let me stop sharing. You can share now.
Yeah, just so it's easier.
Jeremy Kaplan. Thank you.
Okay, so St. Rocco's closed down. I don't remember what year. It was I wouldn't say within the past couple of years. St. Rocco's Church is located on the corner of 27th Street and 4th Avenue. Opportunities for a better tomorrow, yes, OBT. They were actually located and renting space in St. Rocco's for a number of years. They relocated, and the church was actually renting out that space and able to generate, pretty good rent from that large nonprofit renting out space there. I want to say maybe 2017, around that period, OBT ended up leaving and renting space at Industry City. So the church, lost that income stream coming in. And then I want to say a couple of years after that, they had closed. So before we jump so just want to be very clear, all of this mapping information, all of this is included on the city website. So I'm just going to go back and show you exactly where you can get this information. So if you just go to Google and if you plug in that portal, you'll be brought over to the New York City Planning website. And you can actually sign up to receive updates for any projects that are happening in the neighborhood. So you'll be brought to the screen, and then we're just gonna put in the address for the rezoning. So for this one, it's 783 4th Avenue. We'll plug that in, and you wanna make sure that you have filed, checked off, just because the application hasn't officially entered ULURP. So once you do that, you'll scroll down or right here on the side. And here, where it says public documents, you're gonna click this arrow and you're gonna see all of the documentation that has been submitted so far. It's hundreds of pages. This is a brief summary of the project, and then you'll see all of the documentation that has been submitted so far. And then there's also a milestones timeline. So from here, you can see where in the process the developer is at. And then I'm just gonna make the screen a little smaller so you can see it. So you'll see we're down here for the community board review. So this is basically the ULURP process and where we fall on here. So, just for transparency, if you're interested in this or another development, all of this information is available to you. Just gonna run back over here. And again, I just pulled all of this from those documents that the developer had submitted. So again, the development, so the developer is looking to rezone this area on the corner of 27th Street and 4th Avenue. Right now, you'll see that the zoning around the development is zoned for M1-1D. So it's manufacturing, and what they're looking to convert is to change the zoning on the lots to 7AA facing 4th Avenue, and sorry, did I say that wrong? RAA and R7A. So that's what they're looking, that's their proposed rezoning. We'll get back to this. That's just some more, and so for here, I'll run back to this slide. Just wanted to really quickly recap what they're asking for. So they're looking to rezone, so the applicant on the proposal, they submitted as 783 4th Avenue LLC. And they're looking for a mixed-use development with affordable housing. And they're looking for three things. They want a zoning map amendment. So they want to change the zoning from manufacturing, M1-1D to R7A and RAA slash commercial C2-4. They're also looking for a zoning text amendment to establish mandatory inclusionary housing. And they're looking for a special permit to waive off-street parking in exchange for income-restricted units. So one question that I had, and I'm just, just to be transparent, is that when I was going through the summary, there was just some conflicting information with what is actually detailed in the project documents. So, so basically what they're asking for is to construct 3 buildings on that site. And they're looking to facilitate a 13-story building for mixed-use development. They're looking to include 218 dwelling units, but my question had to do, that's why it's highlighted. In other documents, it was a little bit more. So that's just one question that I have in my mind to ask. They're looking for roughly 10,000 square feet of commercial space and parking for non-residential use. Another question is, this proposal has not yet started the ULURP process. And also City of Yes has recently passed. So just thinking about, how might things change now that this was submitted before City of Yes had been approved by the city. So there may be some changes here, but this is just very preliminary what has been filed so far. So again, really quickly, they're looking to establish 3 residential buildings, A, B, and C. And if we go here, this is Fourth Avenue on the left side, and then you'll see here, Building A, Building B, and then Building C, facing 28th Street. So for residential, this is also, in other documents, it looked like they were asking for a total of 257 dwelling units. So just flagging that. And they're also looking for, to establish 25 to 30% income restricted. So that would be about 64 to 77 affordable units. And the rest, that, 75 to 70% would be market rate, and that's roughly 193 to 180 market rate apartments. They're looking to establish retail, voluntary parking, and also open space, which would be like a private yard area. So in other pages going through what they had submitted, Building A would be 13 stories, roughly 130 units with terraces. And they would have retail on the ground floor of Building A, and Building A is the building facing Fourth Avenue. And I'm sorry, I'm jumping around. Let me know if you're getting dizzy. For Building B, they're looking to be 8 stories with 10 parking spaces. And Building C would be 7 stories, residential only with a rooftop terrace. Building C would have 41 units. Yeah. So Building A, 130 units, Building B, 86 units, and Building C, 41 units. This I took from the city's website just so that we can take a look at what the recent area median income brackets look like. So what they were requesting, let me see if they have it here. Okay, it's on this slide, I apologize. So what they're looking is for an average of 60% area median income. So if we come here, we can see what those numbers look like. And at least 10% of the units at 40% AMI, with the remaining being below 80%. So if they do 25% affordable, we're looking at about 64 units. Okay, also to highlight were just some environmental considerations that they had taken into account in the paperwork that was submitted. There was no socioeconomic conditions. They say that there is no direct displacement of residents or workers expected. I'll just read through these. For land use and zoning, they're saying that it aligns with surrounding development trends and public policy. For community facilities, the project would generate eligible early childhood students, no significant burden on schools or services. For open space, they're finding that the project would introduce new residents, but would not significantly impact open space availability. For shadows and visual resources, no adverse impacts on sunlight, sensitive areas, or urban design. For historic cultural resources, they're saying that it was reviewed by the Landmark Preservation Committee, no significant adverse effects identified. Hazardous materials, site historically industrial, phase 1 indicates need for phase 2 environmental review. For sewer and water, demand well below thresholds, approximately, I'm not sure what this means, but we can come back to here if there are questions. For solid waste, Then there's energy use, transportation, air quality, and noise. So they're finding that there were no significant findings on majority of these environmental considerations. Their construction timeline. So they're looking for the project to be completed in two 18-month phases from starting next year, 2026 to 2027, which would be one set of 18-month period. And then the subsequent, the site two would be running from 2008, 2028 to 2029. Okay, so I know that was a lot. I also want to mention that this same developer, Watermark Capital, is partnering to develop on 8th Avenue. And the address is 6208 8th Avenue, a 28-story tower on top of the and subway station. If you all have walked around there, you will see that construction has already began. They've closed off the area, and they've started to break ground. They're looking to have 497 units, and there's no affordability guarantee. So it looks like each of the units here would be market rate. It looks like this development will feature a gym, co-working spaces, a rooftop, bike storage, sauna, screening room, and 100,000 square feet of retail space. Couple of years ago, just because this development falls right on the border of our community board and community board 10, and it's literally like an address over. This development falls under CB10. So their board had actually gone back and forth with this project, and ultimately, what came out of that was that the developer is not required. This development is not required under the zoning text to submit a special permit application because the rail yard was not active before. Post 1962. So this is an as of right development that's happening, and it has already broken ground. Do you want to? Is there more? Yeah. I'm okay with taking a pause. I need some water. Thank you.
Background on that proposal too was that CB10 had shut down a previous proposal, and that development had gone through, I think, 2 or 3 different, it'd been sold a couple different times. And so do we know actually if it sounds like CB10 was trying to do something to stop it, or you would have an idea, but some sort of lawsuit or something, because they found this loophole to go around ULURP after they've shot down a proposal that was actually a smaller development, and now this is a larger development with zero affordability.
This is about rail yards, interpretation of rail yards, Department of City Planning. Previously, Community Board 10 had the right to review that proposal, and then City Planning, I don't know how, I don't think it was done legislatively, reinterpreted the law, so the Community Board no longer had the right to review and have a vote on it. So it is now considered as of right.
Next couple of slides, does anyone else have any questions? Yeah. Oh, just gonna wait for the mic so that folks on online can hear you.
Wasn't clear if these 27th Street, are these rentals or condos, or how are they going to be sold or rented?
Question. So I don't know. When the developer comes next month, we'll prioritize that. I just didn't want for us to sit in a room and hear the presentation and sort of, try to figure out what's going on. I wanted us to have like this context before, but that's a really great question. Other things, like I'm remembering past chair of accessibility, like what is that gonna look like? For me personally, I'm just really concerned that, we're having a developer come, into the neighborhood and, a mile away, they're building this huge tower with no affordability guarantees. And then here on a lot that's, you know, church, the church was there for so many years, and they're looking to develop more market rate and giving us, a very small fraction of affordability. And then, I didn't do the math, but, if we could do that really quickly, on 62nd and 8th Avenue, that's almost 500 market rate apartments. Um, the one on 27th Street, the, they want, if they're going with this number, the 257, and we're only getting what, 64, 77 affordable units out of 750. Yeah, it just,
Do want to actually answer that question though. Whenever you're talking about mandatory inclusionary affordable housing, it's my understanding that that's rental property. If it were an income restricted place that you could purchase, they would use a different vocabulary.
Market rate people will be buying.
I'm renting.
Affordable housing will be renting.
Right. Well, it'll all be renting.
I'll be renting.
I'll be renting. The affordable housing will go through a lottery.
So why don't we leave this question for the developer, because we are actually speculating?
I think we need to talk about recent history, though. We just saw that Arrow Linen in the CBA that we discussed actually said that they had a clause in there to turn stuff into condos that they could buy, which we didn't hear about until basically the CBA. So I think and that is including mandatory inclusion housing. So the laws around sort of what is condo, what is rental, they clearly, Arrow Linen has a loophole within there, and so this developer could do the same thing as well. So I think we can't say for sure that this is, going to be 100% rental. And so, and as we saw with Arrow Linen, they have a clause to basically be able to convert it to condo if they want to.
So I actually own the home that's directly next to Building B. So I've been in conversation with the Catholic, the church that continues to manage that space, or at least until this past Wednesday. So my understanding is that it's a land lease and they didn't actually sell the land. So I think it's like a 50-year lease. And so my assumption has always been that they're going to be rentals, since the developer is not actually owning the land that it's on. And that lease started on Wednesday. Yeah, because they were using that space for parking. Like a lot of trucks around the area used to park in that space, and all the trucks disappeared on Wednesday, and there was a note on the wall.
Yeah, and thanks for being here. Yeah.
This wasn't clear. Is there a relation between this building that's being built by the same developer on 8th Avenue and 62nd Street and this building? Is there some kind of legal relation? That's it. Okay. It's okay. Thank you.
go ahead, Julia.
Hi, thank you, Antoinette, for convening everyone. I think just to build on the comment about the structure of the church and the lessee, I think it'd just be great to have more clarity around that. And as we've with Arrow Linen, as some of you know, like Catholic Charities was willing to come in with 100% affordable development on that site. And I don't really know or understand the relationship of Catholic Charities versus St. Rocco's here, but, can we push for something better for the community on this site? And then secondly, I know City of Yes was adopted, I think, of December of 24. And I know this was filed with city planning in advance of that. But I think enough time has elapsed that it's worthwhile that they should be coming to the community board with a project that's representative of the current zoning as adopted. So, R7A, and sorry, I don't have it in front of me, if that allows, I forget the number, 11 stories, and R8A allows 13 or 15, whatever it is. I think they're showing underbuilt buildings here relative to what zoning allows. And I never believe a developer, like I would think that they would max out the development. You don't often see underbuilt zoning or buildings here in New York City. So I think a request to the developer should be that they come with, a factual updated development plan. And I used to live in this area around the corner on 30th Street. I'm not in the area anymore, but I'd love to hear more, just from local residents. Are there infrastructure issues, or, what's the street safety like getting to PS 172, or, any kind of improvements or concerns with a building of this scale and size on this location? Thank you.
Anyone else on the line have questions? We don't want to forget about you. All right, if anyone has any questions, please raise your hand. And I know Julio had a quick question. Here you go.
Thank you. One of my questions is actually exactly what Julia said. Enough time has passed from City of Yes that I think one of the questions we should ask the developer in advance of the June 4th meeting for them to address is, how does City of Yes affect their proposal? We hear so often when we have these discussions about rezonings that the reason why MIH makes sense and why it's so difficult for developers to go above and beyond is because the cost of land is expensive, and that has to be taken into consideration for the cost of why they cannot go above 25%. But seeing as this is a land lease where the developer is leasing the land, I recognize that there is a cost associated to that lease, but they're not purchasing the land. I think one of the other asks is can they do a deeper affordability in this project, considering that there's not a purchase associated with the lot. I think also that there have been some issues with flooding along 4th Avenue, particularly we saw a lot of flooding during Hurricane Sandy. I'm curious, like, if there are any flood mitigations that need to be taken into consideration for this proposed development. And going back to the development on 62nd Street, I don't necessarily want to tie us to that development because that is CB10, but I think there is a good conversation to be had about as of right construction or as of right development, and being a good neighbor. I think close to 500 units of as of right is kind of outrageous for this neighborhood, and I recognize that it's CB10, but to Antoinette's point, it's literally 15 feet on the CB7 from the CB7 border. So we do have significant concerns about that development.
That development is also on a brownfield. So I actually remember when we had our joint environment committee meetings back when I was acting chair of environment. So that whole process is quite a mess. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a loose wire. Okay. It goes in and out.
Yeah.
I agree with a lot of what everyone said. I just have a couple additional thoughts based on the presentation. Well, the first one is that, it seems like Arrow Linen was repeatedly saying that it couldn't go higher in its affordable units and ultimately agreed to a 40%. So, my perspective in general is that, maybe we could establish a floor of 40% on anything that we would agree to as a community board. And maybe make that our new kind of policy. That's just a suggestion. And then the second point is that I noticed that there was commercial use and parking in the proposal. It sounds to me like they just lost it. It's not really a commercial tenant, I guess, but a nonprofit tenant. But they just lost a tenant to Industry City, so it seems like there's already maybe a surplus of commercial space in the neighborhood. So I don't know why you couldn't turn that area into a more affordable housing rather than use it for commercial uses. So that's another question I had to them.
Fine, yeah.
I represent 27th Street Block Association, and just to voice some concerns from my neighbors, people are concerned about parking. And I know City of Yes addresses that. I mean, and there's different ways of approaching it, but that's a concern. Also the construction process as well, and what that will look like.
Have you, in talking to your neighbors, have you heard anything about the sunlight issue? A 13-story high building is absolutely going to block off light from the blocks north of it.
Yeah, actually, some people have voiced a concern, especially not on the corner, but farther down the street.
Block.
Mid block,
Mhm.
the 27th and 28th both have not the buildings are 3 stories high.
Right.
Max. Now this is going to be 8 stories, so there was some discussion. Why should they be allowed to be so much taller than everything else there? It doesn't really conform to the architecture. Thank you
For being here and sharing this information with us. It's really valuable.
After the meeting, we'll be passing along this information. So if you want to share it with folks on your block or within your association, if, it could, it can help prepare them for the next meeting. Anyone else have questions? Thank you for coming up here to grab the mic. Sorry.
It's on mute there. Press it once, move on once.
There we go. We met, the land use and housing met with Alexa Aviles, what was it, like a month ago? And had a conversation with her, and she was going to follow up and ask to have a conversation directly, and then actually try to loop us back in to speak with the church. And I think it's really vital that we have like a direct communication with the church, and have people, residents who are nearby, speak with them too about what people would like to see with this development, because in a lot of ways, you know, they've been on that property getting a tax deduction for over 100 years. And now it seems like, this project is almost a cash out, and they're going to reap a lot of money from it. They can do a lot more. This is a substantial amount of money that they'll make off of leasing it. And so I think it's incumbent upon them. And I think we tried to ask Alexa to do that. I don't know if we heard anything, but to have not just the developer, but the church speak and have much more open communication, because this shouldn't be treated in the same way as, a private entity trying to make as much money. This is a church that has been in the community for 100 years with a nonprofit status, that had a relationship with the community, and I think needs to do better, and needs to sort of listen to the community, instead of just barrel through with a proposal that at the end of the day, looks like it makes them the most money on leasing.
Does St. Rocco's own all 3 buildings? And I'm just curious how that affects the tax exempt status of it. I mean,
I was wondering that exact question as well. Yeah.
That'll be the first one we ask. Jeremy?
So not necessarily specific to this issue, but I think it comes into play with this issue. When you look at Fourth Avenue, um, there's a building of similar height going up right now, 2 blocks away. But there's a block in between which has lower zoning, which still has commercial zoning, I'm sorry, manufacturing zoning. We're seeing development march south, and it's being done piecemeal by Euler. And back in 2005, ancient history, when we rezoned that area, we upzoned Fourth Avenue, and they also did, I'm forgetting what it's called now, but an enhanced commercial district on Fourth Avenue, which is, when there's a new development, is supposed to get rid of the dark brick face and have more light and more glass and opportunities for commercial on the avenue. And that ended, it went from the northern part of our northern border to 24th Street, and we wanted it to be expanded. We asked them to bring it all the way down Fourth Avenue. I think, so that's still technically the policy of the board, but I think we're going to keep getting more and more Fourth Avenue ULURPs, and we may want to get on top of that and think about the zoning that we have in the district, or at least asks that we might have of developers who come in and make proposals for Fourth Avenue.
Answer it, but just to make a comment towards it, I know that Council Member Alexa Vilas, on her website, she has land use principles, and I'm sure developers are approaching her very often, but there are a set of principles. So maybe, we can convene a future land use meeting where we go through that, just so it's something that we're all familiar with. You had made a comment about the commercial space. One thought about that also is that right now, the United Senior Center, it's a nonprofit that has been around for decades in the community, and they're looking to be displaced, and their lease ends next month. So, I mean, maybe looking for also opportunities, for space for nonprofits. There, and then there was one other thing, and I can't read my gibberish, so that's it.
There's a concern that I have that I'll add just to put it out there, but I'd be interested in what the view is going to look like from Greenwood Cemetery, which is one of the most prized institutions in all of New York City. Putting a 13-story tower a block away, I'm skeptical about. Do you have any answers?
So I don't have any answers.
Right.
However, that was something that we asked of the developer of the property on 24th Street, and they did provide renderings, and we did share that with Greenwood, and Greenwood had no issues. I see no reason why we shouldn't ask this developer for the
It
same
should be every
type
time.
of
Yeah,
rendering.
absolutely. Yeah, right.
Sorry, I was just remembering, Jeremy had raised the point about the church, so I know that, the board office did reach out to see if the diocese could be available, but I'm not sure, if they'll be available to, attend the meeting on the 4th, but I'll follow up. The Brooklyn guy.
Yes. I believe Natasha was in touch with them today, and I believe they're going to make the June meeting.
The diocese?
Yes.
Great.
So Jeremy is asking a question if the diocese has met with Alexa. I'm not sure. I don't know if the board office knows, but we can send a email to Alexa as a follow-up question and try to get an answer on that as a follow-up. All right. Any other questions from folks? Okay.
My question is, would any part of the church building remain standing, or would it all be bulldozed? Because even though I myself am an atheist, obviously that church is very, very important and sacred to many members of our community. And even if it's no longer being used as a church, I'm sure many members of the community are still feel strong sense of attachment to that place and it's sacred to them. So that's my question. Would the building be totally destroyed? Would any part of it remain standing?
From my understanding, yeah, it would be demolished to make way for the,
To that point, however, I'm recalling in Bay Ridge, Our Lady of Angels Church, which was torn down and turned into a school, but they incorporated several architectural aspects in that church. St. Rocco's isn't that pretty, but there may be certain aspects of it. Sometimes I'm an architectural critic. Um, Well, I'm not talking about the well-kept. There are certain churches that I personally find more beautiful. There may be some beautiful aspects of this that we do want to preserve, though.
anyone online have any comments? All right, John?
Thank you. May I ask some questions and of the chairs as well? Okay, I'm John. I'm on both committees as a public member. I live on 23rd Street now, so just a few blocks away from this development. Sorry if this was addressed at the beginning of the meeting. This hasn't been noticed yet, right? It hasn't entered ULURB. Do we have any idea of when that might happen?
Well, so they've already done the environmental impact study. So we are at that point in the process before it actually gets certified by the CPC, yeah?
There's usually some back and forth between city planning and developer. The developer will say, we've submitted everything. City planning will say, no, this isn't good enough. At some point, they'll say it's good enough and certify it, but there's no date certain of that.
And is there a way to roughly anticipate it? I mean, at this point, based on a history of these kinds of projects, can we say it's likely to happen by summer, for example?
I would say that's a much better question for the developer when we have them next month.
Okay. And the developer is coming to speak to the board
Wednesday, June 4th.
Wednesday, June 4th. So just I guess a couple of just general thoughts or questions. I think that these are all great opportunities to try to understand the economics of these projects and what goes into them and what comes out of them. My impression from the 737 4th Avenue discussion that Totem did and the Our Linen discussion was that there didn't emerge a good public understanding of how much they really cost to build and what the economic choices were in them. I have always found the assertion, I think Aaron made this, that there was 100% affordable option from Catholic Charities. I'm not saying it's not true. I've never seen it. Has anyone ever seen that proposal? Because when I hear that, I'm a real novice at this, and I ask very simple questions.
I wouldn't really call it a proposal. It was more like back of the envelope math.
It was an expression of interest that the developer did not share.
Okay, so when I hear, but I mean, look, I think a lot of us would say we want 100% affordable housing. I want 100% affordable housing. I'm a renter. So if someone says it's right there, you could have had it, they were happy to build it, Catholic Charities. My immediate question is wonderful. Why wasn't it built? Is there some reason it wasn't built? Why wasn't that the only thing that the council person accepted? I would love to know why that's the case. This is all to say, I think there's a great opportunity with any one of these projects to ask the developer to, in as much detail as possible, explain how much these projects cost, what are their choices, and what it would take to make more of these kinds of projects affordable, and ask them to actually spell it out in clear language and in clear details. So I would advocate for that. Are we going to be able to ask the developer questions before the June 4th meeting? So what I would suggest is that we put together a list of questions sent in advance, like at least a week before, so that everyone can read it. It could be translated. and we would come into the meeting with a list of preliminary questions already written down. Is that something that people would be
Idea.
interested in?
That's a great idea. So what we could do is a lot of the questions that were asked tonight, we'll make sure to go back to the recording because my handwriting's a little gibberish. But we'll make sure to do that and we could follow up with the developer. So we have, hopefully they respond, but I think that's.
Okay. I just have a couple more, just quick things. Could we develop those lists collectively? So could we allow everybody on the committees access to, for example, either a shared document or comment access to a document or something where we can all chime in and everybody can see each other's questions? Would you be open to that so that it's a collaborative, transparent process to craft the letter or the initial asks?
So a number of folks had raised questions tonight, that we were gathering, so we can definitely put those. If anyone else has questions, feel free to email them to the board office. Depending on capacity between myself and Diana, if we have enough time, then, we could definitely send around a shared like Google document. But I don't think those questions would be any different from what was shared tonight. So we could definitely try to do that.
Okay, but just related to that, I'm sorry, I don't know a lot of the people on these committees. You, sir, Nick, and you're on land use, okay. And are you, sir, on committee? No, community member.
And you have to come early so you can see who's.
Sure. I'm sorry. I guess what I think is I would love for us to be on some sort of either a planning document or email list or something where people can, again, introduce themselves so we know who's on the committee, what their background is, what their experience is. I can say what motivates me and other people can say what motivates them. And I think that would really facilitate conversations among people who have different areas of expertise and different views.
I think
yeah.
that's a great idea. What I will say is I would want people to opt into it in case they don't want.
Okay. Could we try to facilitate an opt-in in communication among committee members?
Sure.
I mean, I would request that of the chairs if they would be open to it. And my last question is community outreach prior to June 4th. So, gentlemen right here, you're from the 27th Street Block Association. Wonderful. So are we going to be able to encourage or facilitate more outreach prior to the June 4th meeting to try to get as many people as possible aware of that and possibly attending? And could we, if people have time, could we help with that in some way? For example, by distributing flyers on the surrounding streets or standing in front of St. Rocco's and yelling? I could do a sandwich board.
I would say there's another more imminent issue in the area that has been motivating people to show up for public meetings, and we can certainly piggyback on that to ensure that people are informed of it.
Okay.
Homeless shelter on 25th Street.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. These are good conversations, and I'm so glad we have now. And I think these are really wonderful opportunities. Every time there's a proposal, it's a great opportunity for people to get together and discuss and to learn a lot and to share knowledge collectively. So thank you.
And, everyone who attended tonight, I know this meeting isn't very well attended, but do appreciate you all making the time to be here. If you can, go back and spread the word and let folks know. And even if they can't make it to the meeting on the 4th, it will be recorded, and they can check it out on YouTube, but it's really important for them to just know that this is happening. Before we wrap up, I did just want to show just a couple of more slides from that presentation, just to wrap it up. Oh, sorry. Cynthia? Cynthia, we're having a tech issue here. Just give us a moment so we can unmute your line. You can unmute now?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. What I was saying was that even though I'm no longer a community board member, but I did serve on the housing and also the land use committee. And the fact that I'm no longer a member, does that mean that I'm not a member of those committees also?
You can serve as a public member. That needs to be approved by the board chair.
I see. Okay. All right. That was my question because when you guys didn't make quorum on either one of those committees, I'm wondering if people know that they can still serve. That's the thing.
Cynthia, you could apply to become a non-board member, committee member, but you still wouldn't count towards quorum. You also don't count against quorum.
Oh, okay, and that's fine, but is there a specific application to do that, or do I just call the board?
Please call the board. We'll send you the application.
Thank you.
Cynthia? Okay, so definitely going to make sure that we send out the slide packet. I apologize for not sending it out in advance of this meeting. But this slide here just gives a real brief, overview of what the ULURP timeline is. This process has not yet officially begun, but once the application is certified by the Department of City Planning, the community board will have 60 days to vote, and then it will go through the borough president's office. Next, it would go off to the city planning commission, city council, and then the mayor. And that's the process for ULURP. So this slide comes from a packet that was put together, and I'll also send it along to folks and also on the housing committee. It was put together by the New School. They put together a Sunset Park toolkit, and it has a lot of really great information about the history of housing and zoning in Sunset Park. So I thought that this was helpful, gives a really brief overview of what, some zoning vocabulary. So, R would be residential, C would be commercial, and M would be manufacturing districts. Really hope that we can have another land use meeting where we really take a look at zoning districts in Sunset Park and learn a little bit more about that. But just wanted to mention that that's here. Also, this slide provides a little bit of information about housing and rezoning milestones in the neighborhood, going back to 2003. I do want to mention that there was a rezoning in 2009 that isn't included on here. Jim?
So the Greenwood Heights rezoning was 2005. Thank you. Greenwood Heights was 2005. 2009 also included, I guess they called it East Windsor Terrace.
South Slope, no, East Windsor Terrace?
Yeah, it's a 7-block area. And, oh, you do have the 197A, sorry.
So we have our historian on board here, but I do want to see if we can have a future housing meeting where we invite the folks who put together. It's a very really great packet of information. Some of it is not, with the dates a little bit off, but really great graphics and helps to provide some more context. Also on here, just giving really some great information about the folks that live in the neighborhood, what the median rent is, and looking at that in different parts of the neighborhood, and then also looking at median household income. And then that's all I have. So we'll definitely make sure to send this off to all of you. Again, thank you so much for being here tonight. Going to make sure that we aggregate all of the questions that were asked, send them off to you. If you're able to meet with any neighbors, if they have any questions, if there's something that pops into your head later, send it over, and we'll make sure to send all of that maybe by the end of next week to the developer, just so they have some time to respond. Any final questions from you all? Anybody online? Oh, Jeremy.
Sorry. No.
I would say also too, since we know that the church is coming, that it'd be important that we can also put together questions as well for the church. especially since the developer will be leasing the land and that the church is still owning it. So that they play still a major role in this. So I think it's important to, so I think we can frame some questions around that and make sure that it gets to the church too as well to come back to us.
Well, and we made it just in time for the Knicks game. So, oh no. All right.
7 o'clock. I was gonna bring that up.
Have a good night, everyone.
All right, good night, everyone.
Typically, I pretend